and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Get Your PD Moving, Improve Teacher Outcomes with Animated Videos. Before we start watching videos and learning how to use them to improve PD for educators, I'd like to review just a few quick housekeeping items. Today's webinar is about PD for educators, but it's also a PD opportunity for you. So please ask whatever questions you have as you have them. We'll be accepting questions throughout the presentation and also holding a Q&A at the end. To send a question, simply click on the Questions tab on your control panel, type your question into the top box, and then click the Send button. I'll get your questions and I'll put them into the queue to be answered. As I said, we will be taking questions throughout, and so if something comes up for you in the moment, feel free to send it our way, and we'll get it answered by our speakers. Our speakers are going to actually have a few questions for you as well, so be sure to share your opinions when we get to our polls that are interspersed throughout the presentation. You'll be able to click your answers on your screen and we'll get those and tally them up, so keep an eye out for that. If you have any technical difficulties during the presentation, please use the question feature to get my attention and I'll do my best to resolve the problem for you. We will be providing you with a recording of the webinar as well as a copy of the PowerPoint slides, so keep an eye on your inbox for a link to those later today or tomorrow. Now let's get started. I'm pleased to introduce today's speakers, Shelby Marshall and Sarah Ditkoff, who are both with FableVision, an award-winning multimedia design and development firm that celebrated their 25th anniversary last fall. Shelby is Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Product Solutions with FableVision. He works closely with FableVision's clients and partners to explore potential partnership opportunities and to map out the strategy and ecosystem for complex projects. He has a bachelor's in biology from Cornell University, an MAT museum education from George Washington University, and more than 35 years of experience designing and producing educational materials and experiences, including countless software products, websites, animated films, and books. Shelby is a director of Games for Ed, an active member of the Association of American Publishers, and a member of the Museum Computer Network. Shelby is joined today by Sarah Ditkoff, who is the Marketing and Client Services Manager for FableVision. Like many of you in the audience, she balances her day between marketing, business development, and creating proposals, and is responsible for the studio's communication efforts. Sarah works closely with new and current studio clients to explore creative partnership and project opportunities, acts as liaison between their teams in the studio in the early project planning stages, and identifies opportunities to amplify marketing and outreach efforts through studio channels near the end of the production cycle. She holds a master's degree in publishing and writing from Emerson College. We're really excited to have Shelby and Sarah back with us today. They've got a lot of information to share with us, as well as some great videos. So I'm going to go ahead and hand the program over to them.
Welcome, folks. We're really glad that you are here joining us to explore a topic that we really love. You've just learned who we are and what we do. We'll give you just a really brief overview of what FableVision does, because we've been showing you examples of things that we've done here and giving you insights that we've gained through our work here. FableVision is an educational media developer. We're based in Boston, and we have been around for over 20 years producing a whole range of digital media, games, animated videos, websites, mobile apps, interactives for that go into online courses, and even museum kiosks. That's basically what we do.
Yep, it is. If you have any questions, as mentioned in the setup, we're happy to answer those throughout, and we're happy to answer anything that might come up that we haven't covered already here in our presentation.
So let's get started. This is what we're going to talk about, basically. When to use video, the strengths of using animation for teaching, a little bit about types of animation so you can see, just get a sense of what variety is available for you, and how you can make best use of animation for professional development. Animated videos have huge benefits, and in fact, we have found that for many uses, they're a better choice than live action or other ways of presenting information. So we're going to go through some examples, give you some pointers and ways of thinking about it, so you can have some sense of when to use them strategically to do a good job. And before we get started, we just got to get a sense of where you're starting from. So we'll put up a poll, a quick poll. Have you used video for professional development? Any kind of video at all?
We'll give everybody just a few seconds to answer that question. All right, it looks like we've got 76% of folks saying that yes, they have used some kind of video for professional development.
Excellent.
Great.
So this is great. So you have some sense of what you're getting into. Okay. So the basic question, of course, why use video for professional development? And these points that I've got here are taken from the Center for Public Education, some research they've done. And basically, as I think you probably know since you've used video, many people are visual learners. And our brains are wired to retain more information when more than one sense is engaged. So when you're watching a video, you're more likely to remember what you learned than if you just read text, because it is multisensory. And with video work, by and large, publishers think about using video for student engagement and for teaching kids. We think about teachers, and especially when they're in professional development environment, they're students too, and they are learners. And you don't really learn differently when you happen to live a few extra years. You learn the way you learn. So we want to look at video as an engaging way to bring anybody into a learning experience. And you'll see that basically that's how we go at it, and we think it works.
Yeah, I think that sometimes there can be a mindset that animation or cartoons are just for kids, but adults are visual learners, and animation is also a great way, and video is a great way to take a potentially complex subject area, to explain it in an approachable and engaging way, and to show things that might not necessarily be tangible or straightforward. So this is the first video that we're going to be showing you. We're going to show you the trailer of an animated series that we created for the Smithsonian Science Education Center. It's called Good Thinking, the Science of Teaching Science. This is a free animated professional development series. And we worked with their staff of scientists to take complex scientific concepts that are taught in the classroom, like gravity, deep space, energy, and to make them in a way and present them in a way that's both fun and approachable. We decided that animation was the perfect medium to do that. It makes it a little less scary. We were able to incorporate some humor, and we were able to take some of those intangible concepts and actually make them approachable. We have a host character whose name is Miss Reyes. She's able to model some of these best classroom practices. She's a little sassy. She has a great sense of humor, and she's able to talk about some of the fears that teachers might have in their classrooms, and then talk about it in a way that makes sense about the best ways to overcome those.
The Smithsonian Science Education Center presents a new original series featuring the best ideas and findings from research on the science of teaching science, starring yours truly and some characters that have been hanging around my classroom for a long time.
Children need to find ways to make sense of the world around them. We all do.
Journey into students' minds to observe commonly held scientific misconceptions.
Hey, the human brain is a complex and wonderful thing.
Pick up new ways to explore science concepts in your classroom.
Oh, that's what I thought.
To learn more about the Good Thinking series, visit us at scienceeducation.si.edu/goodthinking.
So there were 15 episodes in this series. They're online on the Smithsonian's YouTube channel. They're also embedded within the Smithsonian Science Education Center's website. They were also featured on PBS Learning Media. the great thing about this series is that they rolled out new episodes as they were available. They're all available now for public viewing. For each of these videos, Fablevision created the scripts. We did the art and animation, the sound effects, the music. We also provided closed captioning so that there's a nice accessibility feature if someone is hearing impaired and trying to access the content. And because each episode is vetted by experts from the Smithsonian, these do adhere to next generation science standards. So when you're thinking about professional development, we wanted something that was really fun, something that was a little bit funny. You'll see that there are not only kids in the classroom, but then we also had some non-human characters as well. That piece of gum, he's been hanging around the classroom for too long and is able to talk about things that he's seen in the classroom, how kids might be learning about things in a way that might be counterintuitive to the way you're teaching it in your classroom. And by modeling that and incorporating that into the script, we were able to develop something that was really effective.
Sarah, just two things. Right now I'm seeing a black screen. I don't know if we're supposed to be seeing something different.
Yep, it was just the end of the video.
Okay,
so
all right. Just wanted to make sure we weren't having technology problems. And then we actually do have a question that came in. So,
yeah,
and it was really about your working with the Smithsonian and as the client to come to the decision. Did they come to you thinking that they wanted to do live video? I guess sort of how did those conversations go to end up with this format?
Yeah, so we knew they came to us and they said that they wanted to do a professional development animated series. So they were very open to the idea of animation. We weren't sure from the beginning how open they would be to pushing the boundaries in terms of humor, in terms of using metaphor, and in terms of visual style. There's something about this that's, it's youthful in its appearance. It is, I think the aesthetic is, illustrative, but not necessarily cartoony. That was something that we worked with them on. And in the proposal stage, we proposed 3 different approaches to this series. So one of them, which they selected, was the one that we moved forward with, which was, there's a cast of characters, there's the classroom, there are the kids that are in the classroom, and then there are things in the classroom that come to life. And, it's the Smithsonian. They want everything to be scientifically accurate. We weren't sure if that was something that they would go for, if they wanted to do something that was a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more, quote unquote, scientifically accurate. But they were really open to that and excited about that. So we decided to see that through.
One of the things, it was really interesting. Can you put it back just so we have some?
Yeah, of course.
And we're going to get into this a little more later. So in terms of why animation versus live action. A lot of professional development videos, people tend to think that, if we're going to teach teachers, we have to stick a master teacher in the classroom and video her, usually her, as she's teaching a bunch of kids, doing a lesson. And that has its strengths. There's no question about it. But in a case like this, what the Smithsonian was specifically looking to teach teachers how to address misconceptions, naive conceptions, things that kids come to class with, and that, frankly, elementary school teachers tend to come to class with as well. And so when you want to teach teachers something like that, it's less threatening, it's less demanding on a model teacher to be able to just essentially get up in a class and just do it. This way, the content experts and the pedagogical experts could script everything exactly right. They could make sure that every word counted, that every word was appropriate, and that the story built in a way that would really help bring teachers through an understanding of, a recognition of where their kids or they might be heading down the wrong road, and then how to address it. And those are the kinds of things, those are the kinds of strengths that an animated approach brings that really make it stand out, in contrast to your typical live action.
And it's a conversation starter. I think, when there are things that are happening on the screen that are fun to watch. You know, I think they can grease the wheels in, you know, having moments of self-reflection and thinking about ways that you do things in your own classroom, and maybe talking about things that you're seeing modeled in front of you on the screen.
So hope that answered the question. And let's go on. And I think you'll see some other points that you know, that help to clarify, you know, what animation is good for. So since most of you have used video already, you, I think, probably know pretty much what's on this screen. And basically, one thing that we've seen in research and in dealing with publishers who work with professional development is that if you really want to change teacher practices, the PD really needs to occur over time, be ongoing, be something that teachers can return to as needed, can access as needed. And for those kinds of reasons, video is just really a great medium, whether it's animated or live action. And it's powerful, it's efficient, it's convenient, it's economical. And as Sarah said earlier, it's a great way to explain complex or abstract concepts, to model behaviors, to allow for a space where teachers can really reflect and learn.
All right, so this is the second sample we're going to show you. This is a project that we developed with Concord Consortium. They are a research institution that's based here in Massachusetts. The Land of Bump is the first of 3 animated videos that we created for them in a series called Sensing Science. Sensing Science is a series that is aiming to teach kids in grades kindergarten through 2nd grade about the different states of matter. So one thing that Concord Consortium was trying to do was to convey that little kids can understand complex scientific topics from a young age, and trying to find a way to present those to kids in a way that are easy to understand, kind of cute, something that's appealing. And the other side of this project was working with educators to make sure that they know how to teach this in their classrooms as well. So this sample that we're going to show you is called The Land of Bump. It introduces children to the concepts of temperature change and particle movement for kids in that K-2 age demographic. It's a story-based approach to those different states of matter, so liquid, solid, and gas, and it has a pretty cute design. I'm going to exit the presentation quickly to show you. So the whole conceit behind this project is we created a bit of a story where the red dots, which are the hot particles, and the cool dots, the blue dots, which are the cool particles, are moving at different speeds because they're at different temperatures. And they have been invited to the annual Bump Dance Festival, where these 2 different particles have to meet and then find the best way to dance with each other. So it's a little introduction.
Welcome to the Land of Bump. Everything here is very round. There are round ponds, round trees, and round houses. In the Land of Bump, even the people are round. All of the citizens here love to dance, and in fact, their favorite dance is called the Bump. But not everyone dances it the same way. The Red Hots live in the tropics to the south, where the sun is warm and the days are very pleasant. They like to dance fast. The Cool Blues live in the north, where the mountains are covered in snow and the days are cold. They like to dance slow. Today, the Red Hots and the Cool Blues are both traveling to the annual Bump Dance Festival. They need to get there early to practice their routines. It's time for the Red Hots to go on the dance floor and practice their routine. What do you think is happening?
So the great thing about this approach is that there's built-in time for discussion in the classroom. One piece of this project, there was something that was happening in the classroom where they would take something called a thermoscope, which would detect these particle movements. So they were able to have this physical iPad in front of them where they would see particle movements, and then they were able to combine it with this kind of cute storified approach to teaching these scientific concepts. And then you'll see further on, once they've had that discussion, then they're able to move forward.
If only we could share the dance floor without bumping into each other, said one of the Red Hots.
So, and you can see that even though, and we're showing you this because even though it looks as though it was made for kids, and it was made for the teachers as well. And not, science is kind of handy for that, in that, especially for elementary school, you need to provide support to teachers when you're also providing direct instruction to kids. This is a way to kind of tuck that in. We wanted to show you this as an example of that, because it also gives teachers ways to think about, how am I going to teach this material as I'm walking my kids through the steps of this process.
Right. Right, and in the 3 phases of this project, there was a whole research component. So the project was actually funded by the National Science Foundation. It was piloted in a couple schools here in Massachusetts, and the research component was not only researching how kids were learning this content through the series, but also researching how teachers were able to use this content in their classroom, and using that as a professional development opportunity to think about the ways that they were talking about this in their classroom, and then making sure that they had the materials they needed to do so effectively. Yep.
So before we now move on to the next portion of the program, another quick poll. We want to get a sense of what types of video you have used.
So it looks like, I've got a terrible echo. Suzanne, are you able to read out the results?
We can see them.
Okay, then I'll let you guys do that.
So we got 67% have used live action, and 50% have used animated video, which is great. So thank you for that, and it's good to know how much you've used animated video in your work. So what we'll do now is just look a little bit at the comparison of live action and animated video. Interestingly, there are some industry websites, video industry websites, that collected the best 50 best explainer videos, and only 7 of them were not animated. And that fits our experience and what we've seen in also in the research that we've followed. Anthropologists say that illustrations are more powerful communicators than photos or live action videos, because illustrations actually tap into symbolic communication that is innate in our brains. And so animated video really is not just like kid stuff. It's really powerful story and meaning stuff.
Yeah.
And you probably know some of these things that are on the screen. And live action is great for a lot of reasons and for a lot of uses. We think animated video has some really great strengths that need to be taken into account when you're looking at creating professional development and what your goals might be and what kind of content you have, are you going to be updating the content at some point down the road? Are you developing a series? There are reasons to not have to go back into a classroom or into a studio and reshoot or shoot again with live talent.
Right.
We don't need to belabor that. And we'll go through this very quickly since half of you have used animated video. They're just, broadly speaking, you've seen whiteboard animations. Those are the things where you see the hand is speeded up as it's drawing. Motion graphics are basically things that move around the screen.
So like typography or very simple graphics.
And then full animation is just the kind of thing that we've been showing you.
Right.
So when you're thinking about using animated video, and you want to think about a style, what manner of animation do you want to use? You want to choose something that a style that complements the content, meets your needs for what you're trying to teach, for the context in which people will be viewing it. It fits your audience, and of course budget and timeline, and that it fits into your long-term plans as far as is it a one-shot? Is it a series? Is it going to be something that has to be branded? Can you reuse characters in some other context? Are you going to be updating it down the road? Will you want to show it on your website, on Facebook or YouTube, at trade shows? Are you going to want to have a longer version and a shorter version? Like a 4-minute full version, a 60-second short, a little 10-second teaser. Think about all those things as you're planning out before you even start to plan the particulars.
Yeah, and I think that context question is really key, especially in a professional development setting. Are you going to be viewing this with a classroom, by yourself? Who is teaching the professional development session? Are they someone that you're going to be able to have an offline conversation with afterwards? Or if not, is the video really, answering all of your needs? Is it giving you the topics that you are sure that you want to have covered? So just in thinking about, what is your best learning scenario, and how is the video helping to scaffold that learning? All right, this is the next sample that we're going to show you. This is for a game, actually, that we created called Con 'em If You Can, that we created for Commonwealth, formerly the Doorways to Dreams Fund. They do a lot of financial literacy content for young adults all the way up to adult learners. This game, Con 'em If You Can, is actually teaching adults about fraud, about identity theft, and finding the best way to prevent yourself from being the victim of fraud. So this is an interesting approach where they actually, quote unquote, flipped the learning experience, where you are actually playing as the con artist. So you're learning all the ways to take someone's identity, to take their money, and finding the best way to do that, so that by learning the different ways that that con artists take money from people, that they can then help themselves not be victims of this in the past. So there's a whole game that's associated with that, but we're actually going to be showing you some animations one animation that's part of a series that is associated with the game. There are a few videos in the series all around the different techniques that a con artist might use. Phantom riches, reciprocity, scarcity, social consensus, and source credibility. And you learn these tactics to then try and scam the people who are part of this Shady Acres community, which is in the game as well. So I'm going to show you one of those videos that we created. These are viewed while playing the game. They're available on YouTube for free because the content totally makes sense whether or not you're playing the game or not. In deciding the visual style, we wanted something that appealed to a higher age audience, so adults. So we decided on something that was a little bit retro for the style for these videos.
best con artists know that conning requires equal parts intuition, personality, and training. Today's tactic, source credibility. People love to take advice from an expert. So how do you become an credible source? Make yourself seem credible, when actually you're the farthest thing from it. Dress sharp. Rent a big corner office. Print and frame some fake diplomas and awards. And voila! You're an expert. Like a tan or a Van Gogh painting, credibility can be faked. You want your target to think, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. I can certainly trust him with my entire financial future. This tactic takes a small investment on your part. Just get a few fancy props to sell the con. But don't worry, the pocket change you spend on these items will be nothing compared to the money you'll reap from your target. And then some. Build your credibility by appearing reputable, having special credentials, or valuable experience, and you'll earn the trust of your target. You're credible as long as he thinks you are.
So there's something clearly a little tongue-in-cheek about the content in this video. All of the videos in the series were just 1 minute, so they're super easy to watch, very easy to digest. As you notice, they're in that kind of 1950s projector style that was to appeal to our older age demographic. And this was definitely something where, you know, we were comfortable with using humor, and especially when you're talking about money. You know, money is kind of one of the last taboos out there. It's really hard to talk about. People have a hard time talking about it. They have a hard time talking about how they might part with their money. And in using videos and in using a bit of humor here, we were able to coax conversations around people talking about their finances and how to make sure that they were prepared for a possible situation that they might get themselves into.
And when you think about sort of applying what we did here to professional development in general, I mean, it is adult learning. Also, you see, it's a brief video that covers one point.
Right.
So you just hit one thing, hit it well with a little bit of humor. It's catchy, and it's presented in a way through animation that would actually be a little bit harder and certainly more expensive to pull off if you were going to stage the whole thing as a live video. And that's one of the reasons that it's good to consider animation. You know, you can set up scenarios where the only effort it requires is having somebody skilled enough to conceive and render illustrations, animations. You don't need to get you know, a stage set and props and costuming and talent and all that. So, you know, it gives you more freedom to be a little more creative in that regard. But this is just something where clearly using animation and, you know, cartoony style can be very effective with adults.
And there's something timeless about this too. I think when you're doing live action, you know, things like clothing, hairstyles, you know, those things can get out of date really quickly, and these have a nice shelf life, I think, and especially in something like this that has such a retro feel, you know, it still feels current and cool and hip, and I think the approachability and tone of the script makes it feel relevant still.
And adults will recognize, you know, where it comes from.
Right. So this is these are 2 videos. We're going to show you one of the 2, but we created 2 videos for a company called Filmetrics, called What is Thin Film and Measuring Thin Films. These are explainer videos that Filmetrics created for their adult audience to teach people about thin films, what that means, what that is, and how to convey the intricacies of their business to a wide audience. So we'll play the video and then we can talk about it a little bit.
Why, it's Mr. Squirrely taking a quiet bath. Ah, so relaxing. Mr. Squirrely, have you ever wondered why you can see so many colors in your soap bubbles? Would you like to find out? Of course you would. soap bubble is a thin film, but its thickness varies across the surface. Because light is made up of red, green, and blue light waves, different amounts of each color are reflected off the surface. Let's find out why. Light is a wave, and different color light waves have different wavelengths. When a light wave hits the surface of a translucent film, some of it is reflected off the upper surface, some is reflected off the bottom surface, and the rest passes right through. Here is a blue light wave hitting the surface of a bubble. As you can see, some of the wave is reflected off the top, some is reflected off the bottom, and some passes right through. In this spot, the thickness of the bubble corresponds to the length of the wave. So, the waves that reflect off the top and bottom of the bubble line up perfectly, sending a very strong blue signal back into the air. Now, suppose a red light wave is hitting the same part of the bubble. Because red light waves are longer, the portions that reflect off the top and bottom surfaces do not line up. They cancel each other out and do not create a very strong red reflection. However, if the bubble was thicker, then the red light waves would line up and the blue light waves would cancel each other out, making the bubble appear red. We can plot how much light is reflected for the entire color spectrum. This bubble has lots of blue, some green, and very little red, so it appears greenish blue. Since we know how long light waves are, we can look at the color of the bubble and determine the thickness. I'll bet you never thought bath time could be so educational. See, Mr. Squirrely? Measuring thin films is good, clean fun.
So even though this is another science example, one of the things that I hope you can see is that when you want to present information that is either technical or abstract, and that can be historical. It can be language, and language skills. It can be any number of things where the content or the concept is something that's not obvious, it's not clear, it's not actually demonstrable with physical things that you can point a camera at. Animation is great, and that's why you'll see even. Well, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself with examples that can combine live action and animation. So.
That's good.
So let's look at just another a quick example of something that that we did. Just so you don't think that when you think about animated video, you have to think about a long story thing. These are examples of things that we developed for Maryland Public Television. They have a website in which they present a range of different kinds of coursework for teachers, caregivers, students, basically their entire public. And they had a professional development course for teachers teaching algebra. So these are just little brief concept animations that were embedded in the course. And it's just something for you to think about, again, another use of animation.
Gummies scatter randomly on the graph. The table shows the coordinates for each gummy. Arrows indicate that for some x values, there is more than one y value.
So you can see it's just a little illustration of a concept. Hit one more.
Great.
Carlo wants to earn $512. The graph shows how much money Carlo makes as he completes his chores.
So that's just a quick example, just to to make sure that you don't kind of lose sight of that. So animation doesn't always mean story.
Right.
So let's think about then, kind of in general, the tips, things to think about when you are considering animated video for professional development. Clearly, the first thing you've got to do is think about the viewer experience, and that's true no matter what you're creating. Always think about what is the experience that your audience is having, and how can you construct it in a way that is going to be engaging, grab them, and keep them motivated, give them a sense of meaning, and pull them through from beginning to end so that they end up where you want them to be. So that means that you have to know what do you want your audience to know or feel or do as a result of watching the video. And that's just critical. So, and with teachers, one of the things, of course, you're not teaching teachers just facts and information. You want teachers to engage in critical thinking, and that's one of the points of professional development, is getting them to think about what they're doing, not just learn stuff. You want the video to kick off a discussion or an analysis or some manner of active knowledge building. And so you may want to introduce a problem or a task. You may want to use the video to get people thinking about, what next? What do I do when I get done with this video? What's on my mind that I can now continue exploring?
I think ultimately, after going through a professional development class, seminar experience, ultimately you want to go back into the classroom and feel empowered. You want to feel like you are re-entering knowing something different that you didn't know beforehand, or that you're approaching something in a new way, or able to explain something in a new way. But you're taking your time to invest in yourself and to invest in your own knowledge. And animation, live action video, all of these things are all working with that higher purpose in mind.
And animated video is particularly good if you basically want teachers to see, here's how this other teacher taught this lesson, then show the teacher teaching the lesson.
Right.
But if you want to get teachers thinking about, how can I use a method or a technique or a concept, or how do I think my way through a particular problem, then you're often better served by constructing an animated video that models, provides different points of view, has a bit of a light touch so that it's not feeling heavy and intimidating. So hopefully, in this brief period, we have given you some sense of, using video for PD. Why? Well, it's available in small bites. It's available on demand. You can view it repeatedly, review it where and when you need to.
Yeah.
It's effective. And when should you use it? Animated versus live. When you want to take complex concepts and present them in simple ways, when you want to bring data to life, when you want to use humor, if you know you're going to have to update the content at some point, or you want to create a series of videos over time, those are all really good situations where you'd want to use animated. And as far as how to use it effectively for professional development, well, be clear about your intended outcome and engage the viewer, get them to care, and deliver thought-provoking content. It's also really great to use video for setting up follow-up activities. It can be a primer on, like meat and potatoes for your professional development experiences. It can open a door for effective conversation. It can be a really effective part of an overall professional development program.
I also think for myself, it can also revitalize my interest in the topic. So, sometimes if I'm teaching content that I know backwards and forwards and in and out, I think video is a way for me to approach the content in a new way. It can get me re-excited about what I'm teaching, and it can kind of get me reinvested in that process and make sure that my students, whoever that may be, hopefully that excitement is contagious. And I think that professional development, no matter what the format is, that's ultimately the goal.
So we want to see if this has been obviously a quick high level view of what, why, how. Hopefully with things we've shown you and the things we've told you, you have a better sense of where you can go with this. So let's ask you a couple of questions and see where you are.
Yep.
Wow, that is better than I ever expected. That's wonderful.
You guys did a great job.
Great. Well, now we get to the real nitty-gritty question, which is,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, that is great. And for anyone who says no, we understand that a lot of this is about resources, whether or not things are available to you. And if you don't feel more prepared, or if you do feel more prepared, feel free to follow up with us directly. We would love to chat and throw ideas around and see if maybe some things are available.
And definitely. Oh, were there any more questions that came in?
There are some questions, and I am having an echo, so Susan's going to handle those.
Great. And so we'll answer the questions, and of course we have our contact information there on the screen. So really feel free to follow up with us if you have any other questions that don't get answered, today.
Sounds good. Oh, I'm echoing too. What are some software to use to create the animation?
Software tools to create animations.
We are primarily in terms of what we use for actual animating, we are primarily a Flash-based studio, so we animate in Flash primarily. A lot of times we're working with clients and asking them how they're going to be showing the animation and whether or not it needs to be embedded in something, if they're just putting it up on YouTube, but primarily we are a Flash-based animation studio.
Yeah, and we can output Flash videos into formats that are iOS friendly. But there are actually some tools out there for people who want to create their own animations. We don't use them, but I have run into them, and sometimes they're recommended for teachers or others who just want to basically do a DIY kind of animation. Frankly, the results are not as polished and not as professional looking as hiring an animator. But if you can't afford to hire an animator, then at least you get something. And if you're interested, then send me an email and I'll follow up with you with some links, suggestions for tools for kind of making your own.
Awesome, that's helpful. Do you have this is bad. Issues with teacher access videos since YouTube and other hosting channels are sometimes blocked?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, because we're a work-for-hire studio, predominantly our partners or our clients are responsible for getting them directly to teachers. Sometimes it's embedded within a module-based system, whether that's through a subscription or something that they have to sign up for, or it's embedded within a larger video library. That is true about YouTube. We have run into that quite a few times. And while some of the samples we showed today are listed on YouTube, they are also available within the larger resources that those entities offer to teachers.
Yeah, and I would say that by and large, your best bet is to do both. Yeah, and you can think of posting a video on YouTube as almost a marketing device. Put it there so that you get exposure, people find it. but make sure that the videos that you publish are accessible on your own website or in some manner, in some place, so that it's reliable.
Right, within your own network, probably a good safe
Right.
bet. All of the videos you shared were short. For PD, what do you think is the optimal length for a video?
Well, we should say that the good thinking videos, they were supposed to be 3 to 5 minutes with maybe a max of 7. By the time we got done, with all the content and everything, some of them run 7 to 9 minutes.
Yeah, that was the trailer that we showed today. So that was just the teaser that they used for promotions and also to kind of get people excited about the series. But yeah, the final videos were between the 5 to 10 minute mark. Yeah. We do find everyone's busy, so we do always find that shorter content seems to do well. But again, I think it's all about the context. If you're sitting down and ready to do a long class, and the person who is organizing it has a longer video, and that's what you're ready to do, then that totally makes sense. But we have found that the shorter stuff, generally tends to work better.
Yeah, like 3 to 5 minutes. 3 to 4 minutes even. I mean, if you can get what you want to get across that way in that short of time, I'd say go for it. Or see if you can chunk your content into bits where each one could be in its own 3 to 5 minute video.
So if someone has a 30-minute video, you'd recommend breaking that up into smaller chunks.
Yeah.
Again, I think it depends on the context. I think it depends on the setting. So much of what we talk about with our partners is, having the animation set up a conversation or having the video set up a follow-up activity. If you have a 30-minute piece of content and it's working well for you, then you should use what works. If that is working for you, then you should continue to use it. I wouldn't recommend cutting something up just for the sake of cutting it up. Yeah. If it's working, you should go with what works.
If you
that is very good advice.
Yeah, if you paste it well and your audience is sticking with it, all the way through the end, then you're doing a good job. And definitely, you've got your technique down. It's challenging to script a video that people are going to stay with for 30 minutes. It takes a good director.
Yeah, I think one thing that I would recommend is to involve your audience in your process. We do a lot of research, we do a lot of user testing, and hearing directly from your audience. How is this length? Were you engaged the whole time? Would something shorter be more engaging for you, or does this work? Involve that in the conversation and have them become part of the process so that you know that you're presenting them with something that's effective.
And then if people are viewing it online, get your analytics running so that you can see if people are actually watching all the way through the end or if they're bailing partway through. And that will give you information to go back to, if you say, great, 87% of my viewers are sticking through the whole thing, we're golden. Or you find that in fact 87% of my viewers are bailing at 12-minute mark. I better see what's going on at 12-minute mark.
Right.
And maybe re-edit or maybe just break it up into pieces.
Excellent advice, and I really like the idea of as we will at the end of this webinar, offering a survey so people can give their feedback. And before I go any further, we do have quite a few more questions that have come in. We will be distributing a recording of this webinar as well as the slides, so keep an eye on your inbox later today or tomorrow for that email. I want to talk a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry, what was that, Shelby?
If we don't have time for all the questions, then send them to us, and we'll do our answers in an email.
Sure, awesome. So a question came in about production costs, and I'm just going to read this one. Shelby said that the video is economical, but what is the average cost of an animated video, and how does that compare to live action?
Animated video doesn't require many of the production elements that live action does, but illustration can get expensive. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, depending on the style and how long they are, how many, if it's a series or whatever, animated video can run anywhere from, let's say, $5,000 a minute to 3 times that, which
I feel like a lot of our responses are it depends, but it really does. There are a lot of variables there in terms of length, in terms of style, in terms of complexity, in terms of the depth of content. There are a lot of things that go into that, and a lot of times working with people where they're bringing certain things to the table, we're bringing certain things to the table, so there are always efficiencies that can be found in production.
So, and the thing is that you could probably find a way, honestly, like get a camera into a classroom and shoot a video, live action video, for less. But by and large, unless you're getting basically good quality talent, not on screen talent, but even that, unless you're getting everybody involved who's really good or almost free, the quality is going to show. I mean, the thing is that it's going to look like a talking head, or it's going to look like you just really literally stuck a camera in a classroom and watched people do stuff. That's just not ultimately going to be that effective.
And you can certainly control the content far better with animation.
Yeah, absolutely.
What sort of interaction is facilitated along with your videos? Multi-choice questions, note-taking, etc. Does that question make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the context of how the video is being used. We've done videos where there's some animation in it, then it pauses for a question, and the user answers the question on screen, and it moves on. There are plenty of contexts in which the video is shown basically within an online course kind of thing, and so of course the interactivity happens around it. And there could be situations where it's shown as part of a live, in-person training, in which case, it's just one of those things that happens, it's shown, there's discussion and interactivity, live interactivity around it. The interactivity can really be anything you want it to be. That's one of the nice things about it.
And do you work with folks on what the intent and objective is in the planning process?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, that's all part of the upfront planning is, how is this being taught? What is the setting? What are your follow-up activities? How do you want your audience to think differently or act differently after they've watched this content? We have worked with people where they have that kind of talking heads, just to go back to the previous question a little bit, but like that talking head style can be effective if the content is good, if the speaker is good, if the follow-up activities are good. I think it's all about having fun with it and being creative, and making sure that you have the right scaffolding available to make that content come alive. Really, any sort of video can be effective as long as it's conveyed in the right way with the right sort of follow-up.
But one of the things that's nice about working with a creative animation house like us is that you can come with, what you want to teach, and you may know how you want to teach it in terms of the pedagogy. We'll come up with, how to make it engaging and fun, and how to basically use the medium effectively.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to Shelby and Sarah of Fablevision. This has been really informative, and we're very appreciative of your time and your expertise on this subject. Again, for everyone, we will be sending out a recording of the webinar and the slides. So again, keep an eye on your inbox later today or tomorrow. And again, thank you so much. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.